Hello, it's Rewind to Raw. I'm John Pollock, joined by Wai Ting. Another week here at Post Wrestling. How are you, Wai?
Hey, John. Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Okay, I'm trying to read that one.
Yeah.
What does he really mean?
I don't know. That's
Hmm.
for you to interpret, I guess.
I think it's a good 7 out of 10.
Yeah, sure.
It's my interpretation.
Yeah, we'll see how it is in 90 minutes or so. But you had a nice weekend?
I think so.
You think
I'm
so? You're
sorry.
not sure?
I'm really bad at remembering my weekends. Everything honestly kind of blurs and blends together right now. So, I'm
Well, then
pretty
that's a
sure.
good weekend. There's not something terrible that's coming to mind. Like, oh,
I
this
don't have
weekend was a
weekend.
disaster.
I don't have weekend activities anymore. You know, like every day is sort of a weekday. So, I guess my parents visited,
Oh, that's nice.
so that was nice.
How's Wing doing?
He's doing well.
I miss him.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, he can come and visit you too, if you want.
Was
Yeah.
he asking? I'm sure he was asking about me.
He was not asking, no,
Oh,
but he does ask occasionally. Yeah, he asked about like your kids actually.
oh, does he? Well, that's
Yeah,
very nice of him.
yeah.
Does he like being a grandfather again?
Yes, he loves it. He really does. Yeah. And like with like his two prior grandchildren, I suppose that like they're teenagers now,
Wow.
so it's been a while, and they also kind of grew up outside of the country, so this will be the first one that he'll actually maybe see a bit more often.
See, he strategized you. He was going to like go through the whole process of becoming a grandfather, and then he was going to miss it. But then he knew he had way down the line as his draft pick down the road that was going to bear children at some point.
Something tells me there wasn't much planning in my creation, so
Well, we have lots to get into today. We have Raw to talk about. I'm so sorry I started the show like this, but nonetheless, we have much to discuss from tonight's episode of Raw, where it seemed that we are going against two NFL games. So to combat that, we are going to put as much wrestling in the ring as possible. We just had long wrestling matches for the most part on Raw, and
I, s-
Dexter Loomis.
I suppose so. Did it feel that much more than usual? I'm curious to know like what the in-ring content these days of Raw is compared to the prior regime, or tonight's episode compared to last week's.
I mean it's certainly gone significantly heavier. I would say it would be
Mm-hmm.
worth looking at. But like tonight's matches, like we had 5 matches, 20 minutes, 13 minutes, 15 minutes, 17 minutes, 15 and a half for the main event.
5 minutes stretched over 3 hours.
5 matches over 3 hours.
Sorry, 5 matches over 3 hours. Yeah, I just asked because like on Grand Slam they've announced I believe 5 matches, and that'll be five
For
matches
two
over two
hours.
hours. Yeah.
Yes.
So
And then 8 for Friday.
8 for Friday.
Rampage has 8
Oh,
matches.
it's a
dude.
2 hour show. Yeah,
Yes.
forget Rampage.
Yes.
Just 2 hours. That's crazy.
I would love to see them try to program 8 matches in an hour in AEW. That would have been. I mean, they do it on Elevation.
Yeah, maybe even more than that. Sure.
Yes. So this week we are going to have a show right after both nights of Grand Slam, so we can let people know. Rewind to Dynamite, normal time, 10 o'clock. We'll be on the air discussing that show. Friday night, though, we will be on an hour later to accommodate the second hour of Rampage. I know everyone has demanded 4-hour Friday nights in case you want to do anything else. So we will watch the shows on Friday, and then we will go live for all Post Wrestling Cafe members at midnight Eastern. It's going to get crazy. Cafe After Dark at midnight as we go into the early hours of Saturday morning. Maybe Brandon himself will give us a call at 2 a.m.
I will actually have weekend plans this week because I'll be recording Rewind to SmackDown on Saturday.
That's right. Yes. So that will be happening on Friday night. But the big one for Cafe members is Tuesday. We are going to be chatting about Starrcade 1995. What is Starrcade 1995, you ask? It's the show that Wai's going to be watching once we finish Raw tonight.
Well, actually, I did spend some of my weekend watching it, and
Wow.
I'm about halfway through the show, and this is a very special show, John, because it is WCW versus New Japan Pro Wrestling.
I have a lot to say about this show.
So do I.
It will be saved
Okay.
for Tuesday. So you still have the second half of the show to watch?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, is the best yet to come?
No comment.
I just don't know how you top, the incredible xenophobia that WCW was able to present in Japan versus the world and every.
Well, wait. Let's not say
goodness.
anymore. Let's get together on Tuesday, and you know what the cafe is going to be serving? You know what you and I are going to have as we do this review? You and I are going to celebrate Starrcade 95 by having some Otanis together. Okay, so that is what we're going to look forward to. Some official Otanis, as Dusty Rhodes dubbed his alcohol of choice for one specific New Japan Junior Heavyweight that was on this show. So all that and more to come. Dusty Rhodes calling New Japan and Bobby Heenan exporting Japanese culture to an American audience. That's what you get to look for. And Tony Schiavone is traffic cop in the middle of this just odd event. So that is Tuesday. Also this week, it is the much anticipated return of the wellness policy. What are you three going to be discussing on Thursday?
Well, I actually won't be properly on the show, John, but I will be dipping in as a passive observer.
Okay.
But this week, it'll be Jordan Goodman leading the charge with our man, Neil Flanagan, and the two of them will be spending the episode talking a bit more about a career-focused episode. He actually sent me a little bit of a sort of a live read here.
A spoiler?
I don't want to say spoiler. Live Thursday, September 22nd at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Jordan and Neil will be exploring the concept of career in 2022 and beyond. Dreams, money, jobs, education, internships, mentors, entrepreneurship, side hustles, and so on. They'll be using Seth Godin's linchpin as a jumping off point, but there's no need to read the book to participate live. This is a book that Jordan has wanted to discuss for quite some time. And in fact, it's really helped him, I think, find his prior career working for Ring of Honor, actually. So I'm very curious to hear him talk about that. And obviously curious to hear the rest of the Post Wrestling members call in as well. So I'll probably be releasing that link out there sometime Wednesday. Look for that.
Okay, so that's coming out Thursday. Thursday night, Rich Van and Karen Peterson will be chatting about the latest edition of She-Hulk for Cafe members. And then this weekend, we've got the NWA podcast, we have WrestleNomics, and hell freezes over. It's the return of Post Pro Res. Myself and WH Park, we have carved out some time. Sunday night, we will be doing a show. We will look at some of the highlights of the show that is going on from New Japan that day with the rematch between Will Ospreay and David Finlay. Noah's got a big card this weekend, and we'll be catching up to date on all the latest Japanese pro wrestling news. So a packed schedule, and all of that can be found at postwrestling.com.
One last thing to plug here, and that is
plug.
Are in the New York area attending AEW Dynamite Grand Slam, Davey Portman will also be down there. He'll actually be hosting some sort of pre-Grand Slam get-together at Cheap Shots Bar in Queens at 3 p.m. on Wednesday. So Cheap Shots Bar, 3 p.m. on a Wednesday. Go check out Davey Portman and what he has to say and all the fellow postmarks that are attending Dynamite Grand Slam.
14905 Union Turnpike. Cheap Shots.
Yeah.
3 o'clock till 7. They will be $3 shots, $5 whiskey, $5 wings. 4 hours of $3 shots before you go to Grand Slam for 4 hours of wrestling. An equation that what possible answer could be derived from this other than chaos?
That is bad news. But great news.
Maybe the Davey Portman meme will be brought back to life on Wednesday, courtesy of John Cena, who will get to see all of this in person.
It's good. It's a good thing I think Cena will be there. Somebody will be there to take care of the man because we know he gets crazy.
Okay, so check out all of that great stuff this week, and I'm sure we will get Davey's thoughts attending Grand Slam this week at Arthur Ashe Stadium.
Dickie Bird is going to be there too, everybody, all the way from Australia.
Oh my goodness.
Shout out Dickie Bird.
Look at that. Well, Tony Khan has noted that the gate for Arthur Ashe Stadium, they have surpassed last year's gate, even though they have not sold as many tickets as last year. Obviously, you can see they have scaled the prices up this year. So they are not quite at $1 million. If they get to $1 million, it'll be the first time they've done $1 million gate for a TV show from AEW, but it would be their fourth $1 million gate of the year after Double or Nothing, Forbidden Door, and All Out. So that is what they are hoping to achieve over the next 48 hours. And I think Wednesday show is going to do very, very well. It's been a very well built up show. But I'm most curious to see how Rampage performs. It's 2 hours. It is on Friday night. I think this is going to do above and beyond your typical Rampage, but just in comparison to like what kind of an audience they can get on Friday, because I think Friday Way is going to represent like the ceiling of what Rampage is going to attract. I don't think they're going to have. Well, I mean, I could be proven wrong, but I don't know if you're going to have a bigger Rampage card this year than what you have lined up Friday.
I'm curious if like the extra hour might actually downgrade the overall rating by a little bit. But it's a good card on Rampage. I still don't know if it's hitting like that must-see level, when especially at a time now where I think people are kind of conditioned to like do something else on a Friday and then maybe watch Rampage on PVR. But yeah, we'll see. I think it's a stadium show that they're booking a lot of matches for anyway, and to me, you probably just record that and throw it on Rampage as a bit of a bonus.
Yeah, just looking. So Wednesday's got Danielson Moxley, the tag title match with Swerve in Our Glory and the Acclaimed. Tony Storm, Serena Deeb, Athena, and Britt Baker for the women's interim title. Pac and Orange Cassidy and Claudio versus Jericho. All title matches on Wednesday. And then Rampage, the Friday night portion, has Sting and Darby against Buddy Matthews and Brody King. Eddie Kingston, Sammy Guevara. The Golden Ticket Battle Royale. Jade Cargill and Diamante, which I think, Way, your belief is this will be Trina in the corner.
I mean, no one else has said that. I mean, I have no idea who the OG baddest bitch from the 305 could be, but sure, I'll throw my guess in for Trina.
Ray Phoenix, Jungle Boy, Hobbs and Starks, Wardlow and Samoa Joe against Tony Nese and Josh Woods, and Action Bronson and Hook against Matt Menard and Angelo Parker. That is a lot, even for a 2-hour slot, even if you'll have some quicker matches in there.
A lot of those will be short matches, but honestly, like you're reading that off that card, Action Bronson and Hook are the biggest attraction to me. Like they would be the reason I would be tuning in. Yeah.
My guess is they put Sting on last. That's my guess.
Yeah, that's possible too.
I guess there's a few possibilities. You could do Kingston and Guevara, but I could see those two being the two options to close out the show. But maybe they figure, you know what? Action Bronson. He closes the night with Hook.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see how much energy. I mean, it also doesn't matter because it's a tape show. They could sweeten the audio if they really wanted to, but they might not need to. But they tend to put the main event like off the top.
Yeah, I am sure you'll have something. Well, it'll be. I mean, you've got a battle royal to throw in here. You've got a lot of options to play with. But yeah, that is 4 hours for those attending Arthur Ashe Stadium, and we move over to Survivor Series, which will now be Survivor Series WarGames, which I almost wonder if they'll just take the MP3 file of William Regal and they can just put it into the video package.
They do own it.
They could use it. So they announced today through the Ringer that they will be ditching the Raw versus SmackDown concept, and in its place they will have 2 WarGames matches, a men's and women's match. And on top of that, Paul Levesque was interviewed by The Ringer, and when he was asked about a trademark of WarGames being blood, his answer was, "The world has changed. The world has evolved. I don't think it's necessary. There is still blood in WWE, but there are medical personnel to check on wrestlers if there is an inadvertent cut. If we have talent that gets cut open, usually you'll see them roll out and they'll get looked at and make sure that nothing's dangerous. I'm just of the opinion now, given the state of the world and the pandemic, and at the end of the day, what we do is dangerous enough without intentionally making it more dangerous. Yes, we did feature bleeding for a long period of time, but we've changed that practice and it's irresponsible to go back." Mm-hmm. And that seems like a very specific edict that Paul Levesque wants to maintain, and another like differentiating aspect from AEW that is not shy about using blood. Right.
Yeah, whereas AEW, I think in recent years has kind of made a name and really embraced the fact that they are blood and guts.
And I'm sure WWE, we'll see blood on Wednesday's show. I'm sure that at some point we will get blood on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really changes here. This is like always been the company policy. They've been a bit more relaxed about it, and I think in recent years, but and certainly with Brock Lesnar versus Randy Orton, let's not mention about let's forget about that one. But For the most
For
part,
Hunter's like biggest matches like during his heyday. I mean, he was never shy about incorporating blood for a lot of his big matches.
like even once the edict had been in place,
No, I'm talking about more when it was just it was
when it was fine to do it. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I don't. I think it's the right thing to say if you are. I mean, if number one, your company has chosen to be in this position, and number two, I think if you're a large, like multi-million-dollar corporation, I actually feel like I wish more wrestling companies would actually take the stance. I personally kind of feel like, I think blood on occasion is definitely great for dramatic effect, but I definitely think like it could be overused, and I personally feel like AEW has overused it. Um, I think you only bring it up for like, obviously like when it's a story that really demands it. But it is dangerous. Like I think we're ignoring, like because we're so used to it, that this is not something you get in most art forms or pieces of entertainment. People just swapping blood willingly, voluntarily with each other.
Yeah,
For performance.
Yeah, there certainly is that, and I feel like I definitely feel like that is kind of the side I am on, especially when you saw the very first Nigel McGuinness documentary that he did, and just talking about the fact that he was not going to be in any ring where they were cutting themselves, and there is that concern that comes with it. At the same time, you are promoting these matches, and this is always a common complaint when WarGames comes up, when Hell in a Cell comes up, and I think for a portion of your audience, I don't think blood is make or break. But if you came up, and WarGames very much plays to an audience that came up on Jim Crockett Promotions, where this was introduced and popularized, and these were bloodbaths a lot of the time. So that's sort of what they equate with like your big cage match blow off.
To a section of the audience, and I would contend, a section of the audience that I think is that they're not necessarily trying to attract. The NXT War Games that have taken place, they haven't had blood, and have people really complained too much about those? Like from what I gathered, they were always pretty critically well received.
Yeah, they were totally different styles of matches where it was, you took the roof off and you introduced, different stuff like that. I don't think blood is necessary in these matches. I think you can do them in a compelling way. But I also see like there's audiences that, you're trying to do both things. You're trying to promote these like violent matches that, I mean, just look at like the 50+ numbers. Like there's their audience, like there's a sizable audience that they grew up, and that was their expectation of the big blow off style of match that you have all of this. And that's not to say that, accidental blood is like, it's not like we don't see blood ever in WWE. And you've seen the extreme. To me, that's the worst option, where these guys just try to blast each other hard way. And to me, that's the worst option, when guys are trying to bleed on their own, and you're potentially doing significant damage by trying to open up your partner.
I'm not sensing WWE like so much like promoting like Hell in a Cell even as like, like an ultimately like violent, match. Like I don't get the sense that they're promoting the matches based off of violence. Even like Extreme Rules, like we know what Extreme in WWE entails. It's usually just like weapons and shit, right?
Well, that was the drawing aspect of Hell in a Cell, when it was, it was promoted as that, and it was a big deal. And over time, I mean, it was, I think, a combination of factors, doing so many of them. You'd put multiples on shows, but it was like, it sort of just became like, it was not the type of match that was this, that had the same appeal, I think, as like those earlier years. When you announced Hell in a Cell, it meant a difference for that month's pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, these days I get the sense, it's just more about the spectacle of seeing the structure, whether it be Hell in a Cell or in this case, War Games. That to me is the most interesting one. I mean, we're finally getting a main roster stadium size show. I suppose the NXT ones were like that too, but like, it's a stadium size show that you would think would have a double ring setup.
First time on the main roster that they're doing it. And yeah. I think it's a welcome change to ditch the Raw versus SmackDown concept. I think this has been a dead gimmick for years, and I'm glad they identified that problem. I think and this is also...
Everybody has identified that problem. The only person keeping it in place was one guy who didn't see any reason to change it.
Well, and this is also one where this is a clear move that is done strictly for quality of show, because this was a show that sold out immediately. Your money is guaranteed from Peacock every month. Like, you are introducing this concept when there's not a whole lot that you gain. You're not going to sell any more tickets when you've sold out. You've got your guaranteed money. This is strictly having a better show in their mind, and something that is going to be more compelling in their view to promote, rather than the tired Raw versus SmackDown theme that they obviously don't want to go through for 4 weeks, or 3 weeks actually, because this is sandwiched right after the Saudi Arabia show before the end of the year. So it's like 3 weeks between big shows.
It's Hunter pushing his exact creative vision that he had developing. He had been developing NXT up into the main roster, and yeah, he could have, I guess, regurgitated the same cookie cutter stuff that Vince was doing for years on end successfully. But he's brought a number of overhauls, and I suppose, is this the latest one, or what is the latest one? What did we see on this show that he brought back? Brought something back.
Brought back. What, you're referring to WarGames as his latest idea he has brought back?
Man, there's something else. Anyway, please, we'll get to it in the review, I'm sure.
MJF was doing the media rounds for AEW on Monday and stopped by the MMA Hour, which I'm sure went more smoothly than his last appearance on the MMA Hour earlier this year, which was the source of some friction between AEW and MJF, where reportedly MJF had not cleared it through the PR channels to appear on Ariel's show. This time it was completely different, because AEW was actively promoting him appearing on this show. And at the beginning, Ariel asked him if he needed to call AEW PR or Tony Khan before they start the interview. So that was rather amusing. Did you get to see the interview, or did you not have time to?
I did. Yeah.
I thought first of all, like, I would be very curious to see like the different subsections of audiences for the MMA Hour. I would imagine like there is a significant portion that just had no idea who this guy is, and we're just going to.
I put the live
lost.
chat. I put the live chat on YouTube just to be able to see all the MMA Hour, like MMA fans complaining anytime a wrestling fan is on. But like, unfortunately, I was watching it. Like, I couldn't catch up to I was watching an archive and I couldn't catch up. But that's part of the entertainment for me, is to see all the MMA fans react.
So that's fine. This interview is going to get a lot of attention for their show. For AEW, I thought MJF was fantastic in terms of going
when
out
is
there.
He not?
I mean, to me, his interviews are always very tough, because they are like, he is doing it as MJF, but I feel like he has mastered what he wants to do as presenting himself as this MJF character, while also getting across stuff that is real, that you kind of have to comb through to get to. And in all of this, he put a very positive spin on AEW. He promoted these events. And to me, like, this is a guy that I think AEW would look at. Like, here is somebody that is someone we can put out into the media, that it's like, not every sports reporter is going to want to sit down with like an MJF. Like, it's like, I just don't think they're going to want to be doing an interview like this. Ariel's very good.
Reporters who don't want to talk to a character, like a professional wrestling fictitious character, is what you're saying. Right.
And there's a certain dance you have to do interviewing MJF. And what you got here, like, there was plenty of stuff to take from this interview. But on top of it, it was like, this was not MJF playing up the I hate this company and I can't wait to leave. It was, if anything, like, he was putting over AEW very strong in this interview.
So that's, I think, what makes it so interesting, is that even in what sounds like legitimate answers, I could very well take as like being the next chapter of his storyline. You just can't really tell, because what is the current storyline? He had an agreement with Tony Khan, who paid him a huge sum of money and gave him but didn't have to extend his deal, which he kept repeating. By the way, he got engaged to a redhead with a Jewish redhead woman with large bosoms. He made sure to answer, and she sells art, everybody, on Instagram. Go and check it out. So like he's like, the whole time, like, everything that he was saying, you still doubt about whether or not he's telling the truth, or whether if it's just the next chapter of his current storyline.
So is that good or bad?
I find it entertaining. I watched the whole thing. I enjoyed it. I think for me, like I've learned to watch professional wrestling interviews, especially like knowing that you could tell who the real speakers are, or at least the people who seem like they're speaking the truth versus the people who kind of play in character. For me, like I watch MJF interviews just watching the performance and enjoying the performance and being entertained. I don't necessarily take as fact that he got all this money without signing a contract extension. I kind of put no weight on it.
I think that's the majority of people, that they are watching this as almost this is an extension of television, that regardless of whether you are believing what he's saying, you're entertained by it, and you can be open to the idea that he may be telling the truth. But to me, it's a difference than when you send out a Bryan Danielson, a Jon Moxley, a Chris Jericho, that if they state, I have this is when my contract is up, or this, I think largely those kinds of performers, they've kind of built up that credibility that you take them at face value. And with MJF, it's less of, is this just an extension of your character, or is this actual information? And that more so goes to, what you're looking to achieve with these media appearances. Like, it is, to me, it's like you're selling this character that if you have never watched him, hopefully you're entertained by, and you have a curiosity of what this guy does on our regular programming.
Yeah. I'm not frustrated at the fact that I might not necessarily be getting truth. I'm tremendously, like, it's the opposite. I love guessing. I love the fact that there's a performer that is able to go out there to use all sources of media that are available to him to continue to play professional wrestling, to continue to make us not be like buy into, completely immerse ourselves into whatever story that he's making. And he could very well become 100% completely telling the truth, but he's delivering it with such a charismatic character's voice that, like, it's like he could be like telling us the truth this entire time, but because he's speaking in character, we of course find ourselves doubting. But it's this like guesswork that I think continues to make it interesting.
Some of the things he noted was he could not confirm or deny if there was a plane ticket involved over a Double or Nothing weekend. He said he is making a stupid, absurd amount of money now, and I didn't have to sign a contract extension. And during his time off, he went with his now fiance to Greece and to Italy for 2 weeks, and then he stayed in his home because no one was going to get to see him without paying to see him. And he put on 20 pounds of muscle, he stated, and said the show was very good while he was gone, but it was definitely missing something. And he got into, I thought it was like interesting, like his discussions about like Cody leaving, that he equated to the setup of the territory system of, you did not stay in one territory for your whole career. You would, you wrapped up and then you went to the next place. And there's plenty of guys that they had thriving careers doing that this era, you're kind of restricted by predominantly one company for the last 20 years, but very few where it's you leave the major territory, then it's several notches down. And that was his argument, that regardless of what your opinions are of AEW, if you care about pro wrestlers, you should be rooting for our success because it allows me to be able to have leverage and play one company off the other. Like, wrestlers will benefit from this system, and wrestlers already have benefited by just the immediate impact that AEW made, where suddenly bigger contracts were being given out at WWE, and you do have these options. And that part was very legitimate, very real. And the closest we got about, discussing sort of, wrestlers and the limited amount of options that they have had that, as MJF, like, this guy was growing up in a time when, God, he was like 4 or 5 years old when WCW went out of business. Like, that's sort of the,
Stop.
that's,
Please. Stop.
That's kind of what he has, lived through. Although noting the fact, like, he pretty much characterizes, I watch pro wrestling all day. And for those that are not
except
watching,
New Japan,
except New Japan, he hates New Japan, which one day when he does the Tokyo Dome, it will be a tremendous payoff to all of this. But he just says, I study all types of wrestling. I watch World Class. I watch AWA. I watch Mid-South. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody. And, is somebody that just lives pro wrestling and how it can benefit him. So despite his age, obviously, like a significant, I think that any performer should be, you can take bits and pieces from many different avenues, and it doesn't have to be professional wrestling, but it's your direct pipeline that can be of great influence for stuff that your audience is not going to be familiar with, or very, very few of them are, that you can make your own.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I I don't know if like anybody told him to watch that stuff, or if he just happened to like have that natural interest because he's that much of a nerd or that much of a student for all this stuff. Um, I get the sense he's just very exceptional, except especially for somebody of his age to like be that studious about this. He's obviously incredibly passionate about it.
He said he couldn't comment on the press conference, and stating that, he stated that like about Punk's comments, none of it has to do with me, so I can't comment on that. And it's like, it had lots to do with you in the sense that, yes, your name was brought up. I don't think anyone looked at that as, the same degree of what the others were, the comments being made by Punk. But the way it impacted him the most is you just shot an angle with this guy like 20 minutes before. His disappearance absolutely impacts you because you were set to work with this guy and now he's gone. So
there was kind of follow up. Like he said, like the next time he showed up, people were still going crazy for him. So
yeah,
that was sort of his response to that. Yes, it didn't affect him.
He brought up the numbers from the past 2 weeks and took credit for that. And yeah, he was asked if he had seen the fight, and he couldn't comment on that, where he reportedly is a neutral witness to that. So he is obviously not going to talk about any of that.
I thought he handled the Vince question well too. I think what is it? It was Ariel. Ariel asked him like
about leaving. I thought that was a very interesting question, and more so the way he answered it. Like 95% of people in his position would have just given all the and in his character, he could have just blown all the accolades towards Vince McMahon, and instead he paused, and it was like he didn't just give some glowing endorsement of Vince McMahon. He acknowledged, yes, this guy's had a stellar career, but there were some unfortunate things that have come out about this guy. At the same time, I thought that was very notable that he felt the need to, not just paint this wonderful portrait of Vince McMahon that many wrestlers in his position are doing, and just completely excusing what has come out, as if that somehow is not attached to his legacy, which is very much to me negatively impacted by this.
And that's to me again, like why something like this is so interesting. Number one, Ariel is I think fantastic at this sort of like he's dealt with this in MMA plenty of times, like knowing, like he's interviewed like Conor McGregor many times, like where you're talking to somebody and you're not exactly sure if he's bullshitting you, but you're able to navigate and weave through it, to either bullshit along with the person to get to the good stuff, or just like to just like he completely understands, and he's fantastic at it. But it's also like for me to see that like how MJF is able to navigate when Ariel throws in things like what do you think about Vince McMahon retiring? They're two incredibly quick people, and that's I think what you had here.
Yeah, and just looking here at the rest, he defended Tony Khan's comments, stating he has more money than Jim Crockett, stating he had his back up against the wall with 2 WWE shows against him. He felt pressured, but he tried to paint a very positive viewpoint of AEW, that the locker room, it's a team atmosphere. No one should be worried about AEW, and trying to really quell what has kind of precipitated throughout the summer months with all of the stories that have gone from private stories to very public stories and culminating at All Out. But it felt very much in line with what I'm sure that sentiment was coming out of that talent meeting at the Buffalo show, that they came out of it like, and was actualized with John Moxley's promo to that crowd, which to me was as much a speech for the locker room as it was for the audience.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I could see that being a reflection of the truth. I mean, is it a reflection of what the truth might have been several months ago? You wonder. But these aren't things we're really going to know ourselves unless we're in that locker room.
So there you go. That is the interview that MJF did, and huge supporter of ours as well.
Yes.
SmackDown numbers from Friday night. 2,212,000 viewers. They were down 6.5% and a 0.5 in the 18 to 49 demo. So they were coming off an exceptionally high number last week. So they were down from last week, but it was still a very healthy number for SmackDown. They were number one among network programs and number two on all of television behind the college football game that was airing on ESPN. They fell in 18 to 34, but overall, this was a pretty good number. And this one to me was built around kind of the curiosity they were trying to get out on Friday afternoon about Logan Paul making an announcement. And most people, I think, by 8 o'clock knew what the direction was, but still, what would the buzz be for that news that was going all over the place Friday afternoon? In Canada, they did 181,000 viewers, so they were it was their highest number in 4 weeks, and they were fourth for the night among sports, but second in the demo, only behind the CFL. Rampage did 470,000 viewers, up 10% from last week, and 0.14 in 18 to 49. Largely just similar to last week in the demo, but they had a big decline in 18 to 34 and young females as well. Young males. 12 to 34 was down in half from last week, and it was their 50 plus number that and 35 to 54 that just kind of boosted the overall viewership number. So on the surface, it looked just kind of even with last week, but when you look at it, they certainly had a big loss among younger viewers this week. And Brandon Thurston had the quarter hours, and it was like a slow decline throughout the show. So it wasn't as though it grew, but peaking in the first quarter and kind of just declining throughout the show. And that was the show that featured the two main matches, Joe and Josh Woods, and Darby Allin and Matt Hardy. So there you go. Rampage, that I would say is pretty safe, exceeds the typical Rampage number this Friday. But by how much? It's a big question, because Rampage has been, would you say, cold for most of this summer?
Yeah, I would say so.
I won't say freezing, but it's not warm. And I don't know if you're going to break people's habits for 1 week, especially when they're going to get a killer show on Wednesday. Are they coming back on Friday night if you are not a regular Rampage viewer?
They have a string of live Rampages coming up, including, the Toronto date. When does all that begin, John?
October. I don't know when the first week
Sorry,
is.
not live, but like separate tapes.
Yeah. Separate tape. Most of them are live. The Toronto one has its own date. So they've got the first Friday of October. So they're doing, that's the unique one where they're doing 2 nights in Washington, Wednesday and Friday. So that's October the 5th. So 2 weeks after this week.
So around October is when maybe you'll see some improvement in Rampage, you would think, because these are separate nights. You would think that maybe they would have a full roster available to them rather than just the half that didn't appear on Dynamite. And just to sell tickets in general, they might have to beef up some of these cards. So maybe that might be the time they'll be looking to beef that show up, if at all. We'll see.
All right, there you have it. All of the news can be found at postwrestling.com. I've got a story on Jose Aldo retiring from MMA. We will see if that's the end of his combat sports career. He's 36 years old. Do you have any great memories of Jose Aldo?
Man, I was backstage, covering the Aldo Connor fight, and I remember going from the back while we were finishing the interview with the semi-main eventer, and then as we were on our way walking upstairs, the fight was already over. We had completely missed the knockout.
13 seconds.
13 seconds. Unbelievable. Yeah. So unfortunately, that is my most memorable Jose Aldo moment, I suppose. But I mean, the man was also like the standard, like the untouchable, featherweight champion for the longest time. So that's how I choose to remember him.
He was unbeaten for a decade before that Conor fight. And, the Conor fight, it's going to be maybe just because of the amount of buys it did, it's going to be a famous fight linked to him. But to me, that does not tell the story of Jose Aldo's career.
Not at all.
I mean, from watching him throughout WEC, where he was just the phenom. And, when that fight with Uriah Faber, when Faber posted his photo. This was the original, day after photo that is so popular now in pro wrestling. But when he posted that photo the next day of his leg from those leg kicks, it was one of the most grotesque. His leg, it was like 2 legs had been just mounted together. That's how just swollen.
He kicked
This
his leg from
was.
out of his leg.
He kicked his leg from out of his leg. It was
Yeah.
all purple. It was just the most gnarly looking thing ever. And from that moment on, like Jose Aldo's leg kicks, which he kind of got away over the latter portion of his career, but those leg kicks were just incredible. And then, coming to the UFC, having the run that he did. If you go back, his second fight with Chad Mendes is one I will always remember, of him winning in Rio and then just charging into this crowd, and they're losing their minds for Aldo as well. He had the fight with Mark Hominick up here at the Rogers Center.
Oh, how could I forget? Of course.
Yes, which was another very graphic image of one of his opponents with the hematoma that Mark Hominick had on his forehead as well. So a legendary career for Jose Aldo, a Hall of Famer. And yeah, he's still only 36 years old, which is remarkable when you think of how long he's been fighting.
Well, I hope he has enough money to enjoy the rest of his life without thinking about work at that age.
He should, hopefully. But, that's one unfortunate part that I think we will look at many of these fighters, that whatever they made, it was not enough during these incredible years of revenue. But there you have it. Big story up at postwrestling.com on Jose Aldo if you want to check that out. But now we shift focus to Raw, which tonight was going against the Bills and Titans on ESPN. And then the Vikings and Eagles were starting an hour and 15 minutes later on ABC. So for about 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending on how long the earlier game went, they were going against two NFL games, which is very rare that ever happens. So I don't know what impact that's going to have, but you're talking about, 4 fan bases instead of 2 on a Monday night. So we saw what the impact Monday Night Football had on Raw last week. This week, it's kind of compounded when you have 2 games going against them. So,
and do you think that played a part in them starting off the night with the biggest match, I would say, that was promoted?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of curious to see they started with that. I would think so, because like the game on ESPN had already started, but the ABC game wasn't starting till 8:30. So maybe that was the idea. Let's get our biggest match into the ring, and it went pretty much the first half hour of the show. So Jimmy Smith welcomes us to Raw at the SAP Center in San Jose, California, and tonight we are going to find out who will have momentum going into Extreme Rules in 3 weeks. So still elements of the past that we have to preserve.
All the people that criticize WWE for not having a proper ranking system, have you not paid attention to the hypothetical momentum rankings that have existed for decades now? Okay.
Yeah, we need the momentums. Someone's got to release those every week.
Yes.
They also, I don't know where to fit this into the review, but I thought it was worth noting this interesting promotion they're doing with the White Rabbit. So they've been playing White Rabbit at the live events.
An a cappella version of Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit. Yes.
So they played this at SmackDown during one of the commercial breaks, and then they played it again over the weekend at a house show. And I think this is a really cool deal where you're getting like fan videos like going up of the song, and then they went
not even that, like even like I don't know, like this must be somebody in there actually leaking it, but it's like the test like when they play it during the test in the empty arenas.
Yeah,
like even footage of that is coming out, and I in my mind I'm thinking it might all be intentional. Please go on. Yeah, let's talk about it now. Let's talk about it now.
So tonight there was this QR code that appeared on the screen when Austin Theory was in the back. So for people,
and then again in the crowd.
In the crowd
at 9:23, a man walked by with.
Oh, okay, that part I missed. Okay,
Yeah.
So if you scan the QR code, it took you to this video where it's a game of Hangman. And it asks who killed the world, and you've got the White Rabbit guessing letters that leads to the answer you did, and then the flashing 9:23 that would presumably lead people to Friday, September 23rd.
Yeah. In addition to 9:23, like the time today. So yeah, when you go to the video there, it's I think ever since the White Rabbit song started playing, internet sleuths were already like hard at work, and many people deducing one of two answers. The first of which I think well, being Killer Cross, because he used to have this gimmick in Lucha Underground as the White Rabbit. But the second being Bray Wyatt, because anytime spooky shit happens in the WWE, people think it might be Bray Wyatt. This time, though, I think there is actual, credibility to those guesses.
I think it's really clever to make like Karrion Kross just like misdirection. Like it doesn't make any sense for this to be some Karrion Kross deal, but it's very smart to lead people in that direction to try and get them off the scent.
I think besides that reasoning attached to Bray Wyatt, I think the fact that it's this sort of riddle type of thing, not the wrestler, I mean, but this sort of like lead you down a rabbit hole, all pun intended.
Are you writing these?
Type of thing that feels very much of a Bray Wyatt style. So beyond that, I mean, we can get really deep with some of this stuff, as the internet already has. A user on Reddit actually like dug through one of Bray's old tweets, I think from July or something like that, talking about Self, Arkansas, which is like a sort of like I don't know, some sort of weird town, and this place called the Devil's Hole. Anyway, somebody Googled that. I want to give this person credit because this is the incredible amount of like hard research or just crazy dumb luck. But if you Google this, one of the results that comes up is a message board thread from 2005. When you scroll up to the top, the moderator of the message board is somebody by the name of White Rabbit.
Jesus now, Christ.
That is fucking 6D backgammon, okay?
Dude,
like that's
if these
more than
pro wrestling companies ever take for granted the passion of their fan base that get to the bottom of these things, I mean,
I think we're starting to see that, John, and I think that you've started to see that with this new regime, where whether it be, like the Dexter Lumis stuff, I think is kind of like a very surface level of what this is. Like having Dexter Lumis show up and then not really mentioning him, that's sort of like a basic version of what this is. But like you can see like Hunter's been, I think, at least attempting and playing with the internet, or at least internet sort of like I don't know, viral marketing. And Bray Wyatt, to me, certainly would be somebody to take that even to a further level, and maybe he already has.
So Self, Arkansas is an unincorporated community in Boone County, Arkansas. It is the location of Cottonwood School number 45, which is located at Cottonwood and Dubuque Roads and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So, could this be the return of Eli Cottonwood?
Listen, I mean, we're bringing back NXT originals. That would be one that would be digging way back, And
his mustache.
Yeah, Eli Cottonwood, certainly. That would be quite the swerve. I think so. Yeah, that person on Reddit, his name is Gentleman's Bastard. So all credit to him. And then, there are several other clues that would hint towards Bray, including this one credit. I credit to John Cena, who said that "Come with me" was one of the lines that was listed. It's apparently one of Bray's final words in his final FCW promo.
Oh,
so
maybe Puff Daddy's coming.
With Jimmy Page or without?
Exactly.
Puff Daddy managed by Jimmy Page as a new wrestler.
Yes.
Like following in Action Bronson's footsteps.
With Eli Cottonwood. I think we've pieced it all together. Overall, though, like regardless of like getting into the weeds of all this, I love this type of thing. And
me too.
I like doing like, these things that kind of send your audience, as small a number as maybe that are going to this length,
it's
on
not
this little
that
scavenger
small,
hunt.
John, it's not that small. Like
I'm saying are doing this detective work to this level, dude.
Okay.
That are going into this.
Is what I mean. Like
exactly.
It's like
that's it. It's like all
Reddit.
You need to do is cover like a percentage of your audience, and it will spread among the audience that is most going to appreciate this when it comes. And it just builds anticipation. That's essentially what you're doing as a promoter. You're building anticipation and finding the most state-of-the-art ways to do that.
What do most of us who are like MCU fans do after every single episode of one of these Disney Plus shows? We go on the internet and we watch endless amounts of stupid Easter egg videos where people fucking like they microscopically enlarge the most stupid, meaningless detail, and half the time they're actually right. They actually find stuff.
Yeah, but some of the times they're plenty off the mark.
Oh,
where people
often,
are just, hey, He was wearing the color red. So
Mephisto,
anyone that knows
Mephisto.
what the color red is obviously a callback to the loss of his father who bled blood. And it means the father's alive.
Yeah.
Like
That is definitely the case.
There's some crazies out there that just
But
go,
half the time, and maybe even a quarter of the time, they're actually right. And I think for years we've been begging for professional wrestling to treat its audience with that same level of intelligence, or at least, I don't know, playfulness. You know, it engrosses you in the material. It creates so much, I think, positive buzz online, and it just like it, you know, it keeps you guessing, which is what professional wrestling should be doing, and guessing in a good way. You know, leading
QR code. What nerd is putting a code on his phone?
What does QR stand for?
So we start off the show with Bobby Lashley.
Is Vince at home pointing his phone onto the screen, trying to zoom in on what's in the background? Does somebody have to explain to Vince what a QR code is? Is he watching Raw anymore?
Has he logged into Peacock yet? Has he figured out Peacock? That would be.
He probably can't remember his password. He probably has to call Stephanie for his password.
Would he have had a password to begin with? Like, why would you even have a Peacock account if you're Vince McMahon? You're not coming home to watch your show.
Oh, don't you want to see how your product that you're paying for that's making you money is serving? Like, I have a Patreon account to see how our Patreon is acting.
I mean, I just don't imagine he would be one that would, like, you're there. You're watching it. You've probably got it set up at the office or something. I don't know if he's coming home and would have his own account registered and all.
He might want to dig back into WCW Starrcade 1995 once in a while to see WCW versus New Japan Pro Wrestling, Japan versus the world.
Yes, and then get Ric Flair's comments on what he thought about that main event. All that to come on Rewind Away.
So let's just say this is Bray Wyatt. I mean, I think this is a good sign, okay? Because we've seen two versions of Bray Wyatt throughout his, time into the WWE. We saw, I think, you know, the ultra cool, like, brilliant idea. To me, like, Firefly Funhouse against John Cena remains one of my favorite things that WWE has ever done, because it's so it operates on a similar type of level. But then there's also the House of Horrors Bray Wyatt, which what happened there, I don't know. You know, the Alexa Bliss bleeding from the face Bray Wyatt, which, I mean, we still don't have much of an answer for. Oozing oil. I mean, like, there's just like.
But then it really hit its peak when him and Braun had their underwater adventure. They recreated Waterworld. Remember that?
What?
They were in the swamp or something.
Oh yeah. Fuck. Like, there was so much good stuff, but then there's way more bad stuff. So is this going to be like, what is Bray Wyatt going to be like under a different regime? What was always the issue there? What, like, you can always tell there was maybe some like beginnings of a great idea, but just like the follow through would typically just be completely awful. Is this going to be
in the hands of like creative ideas that like they are in sync with one another? Mm-hmm. I don't think that Bray Wyatt had that on the main roster, and that's despite some wins. Like, you look at that first time he came out and like that SummerSlam match he did here in Toronto, and it got over so big with the entrance. Great win. It was fantastic. But then you had, you know, fast forward just 2 months and he's doing the Hell in a Cell thing with Seth Rollins. That was just a debacle, as they're just one of the most embarrassing endings to a pay-per-view I can recall in WWE. So, I mean, it was highs and lows, and I think it's got to be a collaborative process, because no performer is coming in with carte blanche, as much as I'm sure Bray Wyatt would want something like that. Like, you have to be able to collaborate with someone that understands like the character and how it works in this world, that we've moved away from a lot of these characters as well. Like, there is a way to do them, but you have to be able to weave them into this same world that possesses a Seth Rollins and possesses a Bobby Lashley, so that it's not this, you know, tune-out factor that, you know, some of Bray's programs became. Mm-hmm. So, Lashley and Rollins, they went 20 minutes here to start the show, and Rollins is working on the arm of Bobby Lashley, and Smith is noting how he's trying for a bicep slicer, which I don't know if you have ever had a bicep slicer properly applied. It was the worst pain I've ever felt of any submission.
You often bring this up anytime I think a bicep slicer comes up in
every single time I think of this. I just think it would be a tremendous finisher if people realize how
What's worse, like a joint lock or like a muscle lock for you?
muscle lock, I think.
Really?
This was I was putting plenty of submissions that like there was believe me there was like pain to them. Bicep slicer was another level. Like it just literally felt like someone was sawing through like my arm. That's what it felt like. Because I don't know if it was, I can't remember what the level of the guy was that applied it, but it was just like that. I'm done. Like you get that on me, 100%. The most.
You must have really gotten into this match.
Yeah, I mean, well, Lashley seemed to he.
Have you ever felt a hurt lock?
You're right. No, I have not. I've not had a proper hurt lock applied. But if I had a turnbuckle to kick off of, maybe I could survive. So Lashley is trying for a superplex, and Rollins rakes the eyes and buckle bombs him, frog splash, and then applies a crossface. And then he, while he applies the crossface, he's like scissoring the bad arm of Bobby Lashley, who breaks the grip, and he does a running spear into a pedigree by Rollins for a near fall. And the audience is humming along with Rollins' theme, misses the Phoenix Splash. The best spot of this whole match was when Rollins went for the stomp and Bobby just stayed on all fours and he couldn't put the man's weight down. He just posted on all fours and it was the block of the stomp. He's figured it out.
I fucking love it. I love a
I don't think this audience appreciated it. I thought it was cool as hell.
I thought it was so brilliant because it is so simple. It is so just efficient and just smart. And obviously it requires, I think in story, like, or in kayfabe, like somebody who's ridiculously strong to withstand like that, of which Bobby Lashley belongs. Yes, he is. He's strong, but he also shows that he's smart. He uses his strength and also like minimal effort to be able to withstand this man's finisher. I loved it. Very smart.
He gets caught in the hurt lock, and this is where he kicks off the turnbuckles, does the Bret Hart spot, flipping on top, but Lashley kicks out, but he's still got the hurt lock applied. And then as Rollins gets thrown off of him, he lands on the referee. So the referee is all wobbled, and this allows Rollins to kick Lashley low to get out. Matt Riddle runs out for the distraction, and Rollins turns around and is speared. 20 minutes, 5 seconds, Bobby Lashley retains, and Rollins is furious as he stares at Matt Riddle.
I wish they could have found a more unique way of doing the distraction, but...
This had turned into a really good match that by the time Riddle came out, you sort of like... I understood they had a purpose for it, like it was building to something, but I agree. It just felt like, well,
I'm not mad at the distraction. I predicted the distraction last week. I just wish like we're at the point now where like we can come up with something a bit more like clever than he looked at him. I can't do anything else. He looked at me. I can't concentrate on my match. I'm gonna eat this finish. I don't know. Maybe it's just like it's because they have to do like 10 of these a week that they just throw their hands up in the air and they're like just go with the distraction finish A. But I have a higher standard for this show now, and so a part of me wishes that it could have been a bit more clever, but still, distraction finish was the right way to go. You had a TV match here, really, that was really hot for 3 segments. You deliver a finish while still building towards your Rollins and Riddle feud. Lashley gets another defense. So yeah, it was good. I feel like it's okay to criticize at this point now, though, that like I think Bobby Lashley he's proving to be a fantastic babyface champion. He's making that title feel like it's a main event title because he's being presented as a main event guy. But I'm certainly ready for him to actually get a program by this point. He's winning these matches, but he's largely been used as sort of like a device, really, just a background device, if that, to further other people's storylines than his own. First, it was like the Miz. He needed Dexter Lumis to distract the Miz to get that victory. This week it was Riddle. Like I'm ready for Lashley to kind of have his like Gunther Sheamus moment, something that like he could be known for himself.
Maybe he'll make his way to the fight pit eventually.
That could be a match. Yeah, that could be.
Well, it picked up at the end. I thought like there's certainly like this has been a hallmark of the last 2 months is like they are not shy about doing like your big near falls like that. That pedigree spear spot was one that, him and Hunter did. And that was like reserved, for like your biggest of big matches of the year. So that was a nice spot that they had.
Two creative counters to big moves with the stomp and the spear here. Yeah.
Damage Control arrived in a limo and then they came out in this cart for their championship celebration, and Bayley acknowledges being here from the Bay Area, but then insults the San Jose Sharks to get booed. And Dakota Kai says that this division does not need Bianca Belair, Asuka, or Bliss, and she's just getting lit up with what chance, and said that Belair phoned it in because she forgot what it's like to lose until Bayley reminded her at Cardiff. So that prompts Belair to come out with Bliss and Asuka, and Bayley has not decided yet when she's going to go for the title, and she makes fun of Alexa Bliss and Lily, calling Bliss a shell of her former self, and Bliss challenges her to a match tonight, saying, "You're right, Lily does bite, but I still do too."
Are we waiting for the joke?
That was it.
The bite. I mean,
Yes,
I meant
Lily
the biting.
does bite, but I still do too.
I was referring to the other biting incident in the other rival wrestling organization. But anyway, so yeah, they were trying to get Bayley booed here in San Jose. I think they were having a hell of a time. I mean, I have to say they were quite daring on this show to have Bayley come out here, deliver a promo, and to wrestle in the main event in front of San Jose. And I think like they were reacting at least decently, like, you know, negatively to the Sharks line. But beyond that, it was still very much at best a split crowd.
Yeah. And I don't know if Alexa was like, I feel Asuka would have been a lot more effective in the role for the main event.
Didn't they like do this match in San Jose? Isn't that the reason why that was the
thing. Like they did this, and this was certainly one of those many debated, you know, hometown outcomes where Alexa Bliss beat babyface Bayley in her hometown for the title 5 years ago. And they did bring that up in the main event, but that was one where a lot of head scratching of why you would beat Bayley in her hometown when she was the babyface. Austin Theory against Kevin Owens, and Theory.
Sorry, just going back to Bliss, Asuka, and Belair, I think we can assume this might be like preliminary build towards the women's WarGames match. Would you think?
Yeah, I think for sure Damage Control, and I guess, yeah, I don't know if this one necessarily feels like this one has. You've got to add some players to this because I can't see this going another 2 months. At this rate.
Yeah, how far are we? So September right now. So
November 26th is Survivor Series, so over 2 months away.
Okay, Extreme Rules is in 3 weeks?
Yes.
3 weeks. Okay, so from that point on, so we're getting Bayley versus Bianca there. Can the feud continue another like month and a half? I think it's possible, don't you? Like, okay, so let's just like, do you want to play like guess, like, because like certainly on the babyface side, if they keep these three, Belair, Bliss, and Asuka, could this be could Naomi and Sasha fill the other two spots?
I mean, if you look at this, is this big enough in the sense? Are you going to do a WarGames match without some of your like a Ronda, without a Charlotte, without some of those names?
They could be in it.
Well, that's what I'm saying is like maybe this gets.
Well, Sasha and Naomi, I think would more than.
I think that would be certainly like that being Boston. I think that would be the target if you're bringing back Sasha to build up to something. Whether it's in the she's actually wrestling on the show, whether that's when you hold off the return until like I think the idea of having her wrestle on that show would be what I would be aiming for.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're almost like perfect to pair with the babyface side. You have Bayley and Sasha possibly meeting up in the ring, in a WarGame setting. Sasha teaming with Belair would be interesting as well, and it's all Boston. Like, it could be that would be my guess. Maybe
I like that idea a lot. Yeah. You have to get some partners for Damage Control if you're doing like the straight one team on one team. But yeah, I think that that's a very viable plan to go with. So Theory and Owens, Theory attacks Owens before the bell, and then the bell rings as Owens is asked if he wants to continue with this match, and he says yes. Missed with a cannonball, and then there's a long headlock by Theory. Owens is out, lands the swanton. There's cat calls of "Who's your daddy?" and Owens yells that he's Theory's daddy and misses with the twisting moonsault. Theory hits a blockbuster and then a cross-legged neckbreaker and keeps going for pinfall after pinfall. And then he eyes the briefcase in the corner. But Johnny Gargano appears from the ringside area and grabs the briefcase and leads to a super kick, cannonball, and pop-up powerbomb. Owens pins Theory in 12 minutes and 48 seconds. I like the fact that they did not do the just the 50-50 style that Owens won 2 weeks ago, so Theory gets his win back. It's Owens is winning and he's on this roll, and Theory is not. Like, we are differentiating like almost tiers of people that are moving forward and others that are racking up losses. I think it's a much more effective way instead of trying to make everybody equal.
I think we're just so used to watching WWE TV 50-50 booking that like we came in here with the expectation that they're booking a rematch so Theory can get his win back. And I think we forget that like most sane like people in these sort of positions might not necessarily do this, or maybe they do. Maybe I'm giving Hunter too much credit, but I too am glad that they didn't go 50-50 here. I hope, obviously, you wish that the Money in the Bank winner doesn't just take all these countless pinfalls. So maybe I wouldn't have booked this match anyway, but.
Well, that was the other thing, was like the purpose of this. Like, what did the last win accomplish for Kevin Owens, and what did the second win accomplish for Kevin Owens?
It's a great point. Yeah, I
think that's the next step of like, you do want to make these. You can't do this up and down the card, but I think your key matches, like, it should be like he has advanced and this is what he is working towards, and this win should bring him closer to whatever that destination is.
It just felt like they needed another win for Kevin Owens, and they needed a reason for Gargano to, build some heat on Theory, and they just put these two together despite the fact that they both had a match the week prior.
And then Gargano dropped the briefcase onto Theory. Kevin Patrick interviewed Riddle and said, "You arguably cost Seth Rollins the match, arguably. And Riddle's going to continue to hunt him every day until he gets his rematch. And tonight he's going to help Ray get some sweet vengeance on Judgment Day. The guys that dress like the goths in South Park." I'm not up to date on South Park, so I'll take
Man,
that's for it.
The goths. The goths are from like the 90s, I feel.
Okay. Well,
maybe early 2000s. Yeah.
They recap the Reigns Logan Paul press conference from over the weekend for November the 5th. And then out come Butch and Ridge Holland for a promo to build up their match with the Usos this Friday, and they get cut off by the Street Profits.
Have we heard Pete Dunne as Butch speak on the main roster at all up until this point? Had he said any human words up until this point?
Yeah, this would be the first time English came out of him instead of
the wild beast. The wild dog has learned to speak human.
Yeah, he's domesticated. So they get cut off by the Street Profits and state, "You haven't beaten us yet." So we get the impromptu match between the two, and Butch is stomping on the arm of Dawkins, and as he's in control, Jimmy Smith, not letting go of the past, states that Butch is foaming at the mouth.
Yeah, is somebody throwing these lines in? Like, I mean, he really did have like a gob of spit on his mouth, so maybe.
Well, maybe it was an accidental observation from Jimmy Smith that just ties it all together. We come back from commercial, and Ford's arm is being bent, so Smith just says, "Welcome back to agony," which I can't tell you how many Monday nights I said those words to myself as I sat down at 8 o'clock. Butch has a triangle on Dawkins, but Dawkins lifts him into a super blockbuster by Montez Ford, and Ford then hits a Tope con Hero onto both men. They go for a super blockbuster to Holland, but it's stopped when Butch snaps Ford's fingers. They double team Dawkins as Holland lifts him up. Butch hits a kick into Northern Grit, and they pin him in 14 minutes and 40 seconds going into the tag title match on Friday.
I didn't get the booking of this match whatsoever. You have just turned the Brawling Brutes baby faces coming off of the Sheamus Gunther match. So you're going to put them on Raw against the most over babyface tag team on that show without Sheamus. So they come out here. It to me, like, it felt like the first time I'd seen Butch and Ridge without Sheamus. And it's very clear at this point, like, Sheamus is the key to their babyface reaction that you got on Friday. Because without Sheamus, I don't think this crowd really gave too many shits about these two. And On top of that, you had the Street Profits for them to contend with. Why would you do that? And then throughout the match, they kind of wrestled as heels. And then like the Street Profits are doing such spectacular finishing moves. And their move is what? A power slam with a kick. I mean, it's cool. It's like realistic, I suppose, but you can't compete with the dude flipping like, onto another man's on a guy's shoulders. So I thought this was like really ineffective for their Usos match coming up on Friday.
Well, when you go through the Rolodex, I mean, you don't have a whole lot of babyface teams to put in this role to kind of just...
Los Lotharios.
I mean, you could have, to your point, yeah, they obviously wanted like a babyface team, but you're right. It would have worked better for just a heel team, but I guess maybe they just wanted they didn't want a level of like, you're already putting Holland and Butch out there that are not your biggest stars. And Los Lotharios are, that's maybe not the most appealing two-segment
then
match.
how about a three-way?
With
Los Lotharios and the Profits, so that at least like the Brawling Brutes wouldn't be the most hated group on screen at the time. Well,
it was Street Profits were just in the role to get these guys ready for Friday, and losing to maybe they need a name for their kick / power slam.
What was Northern Grit then? What the hell is Northern Grit?
That's what he hit him with at the end. It's accompanied by the kick.
Oh, okay. So it's like a special.
He just didn't win too many matches with it, so not the most well remembered move. Northern Grit.
Even more Northern Grit.
Yes.
Okay.
Megan Morant interviews Poppy Hefe, Rey Mysterio, and he said he could have stopped all of this if only he had known the resentment Dom was harboring. He says Edge is sidelined, but he's not out of the fight. He's kind of out of the fight. He's off television. He's hurt. He's kind of out of the fight.
He might be at home. He might be like tweeting support.
He's figuring out this QR code and stuff. He's too busy with Sheriff Copeland.
Yeah.
He hopes that Dominic finds a way back to their family. I will never give up on my son. And then he looks into the camera. Everything I've ever done in my life is for you. The opportunities that I never had, and for you to carry the legacy, but only if you want it. And then Riddle walks in doing his stoner routine that just felt so out of place here, as his father's like, it's like he's like pleading to the capturers of his son, like that have taken him hostage. And Riddle's like, hey, dude, we're going to get some sweet vengeance. Sweet vengeance with young Dom. You feel me, bro? And then Ray comes, okay, bro. Sound like a fool here. So, yeah. Alpha Academy met with Johnny Gargano, and they're upset about him costing Theory the match. Kevin Owens shows up, and they set up a tag match for Edmonton next week, with Kevin Owens tying things together that he beat Chad Gable in Toronto, and he likes beating up Gable in his home country, and it turns out they're in Edmonton next week. So, Canada, your largest hometown, where this is like the difference between... like if you were in Buffalo claiming like Montana as your hometown, that's like the difference of like Toronto to Edmonton.
Geography.
For the guy who's from, Quebec.
Yes, it is true. But I would be lying if I said that, being from Toronto, I didn't feel a kinship with Brett or, the Hart family. Just like, even though they were like way further than somebody from New York, for instance.
Wait, you were born in Scarborough, and I feel there's a distance between
I was born in Hong Kong, actually, so I actually
that's true. Never mind.
Shouldn't feel great about any of these guys. Who's my representative? Ho Ho Lun. I've got Ho Ho.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got Ho Ho Lun.
He's pretty cool. Anyway, so this is Owens and Gargano teaming up as a pair. And I think the deep internet researchers will have recognized that these two were once a team known as the Panda Express because they have a shared love of pandas. I believe in AEW, even though I believe they never actually teamed up in ring, so they're picking that back up. We're going to see a reunion of the Panda Express, and I look forward to seeing like not just in ring what they can do, but like they seem to have like a very witty rapport backstage. So like their personalities mixing together, I'm quite looking forward to.
Yeah. I'm just trying to imagine like the AEW contingent that shows up in Edmonton next week. Judgment Day walkout. They explain that Edge has a grade 2 MCL strain. grade 2. And they don't know when he's going to be back. So Judgment Day cuts a promo. Rhea says they run Raw. No one's going to stop them. Now that Dominic is with us. Now that he's all man. And Balor and Priest, they put over Dominic. They love this guy. And then they make fun of Edge sitting on his mountain of omnipotence, which I thought was a great line to bring that one back. And even Rhea laughs and says, even I didn't know what he was talking about with that. And she says that Poppy is very proud of you. Thank you. Thank you, Rhea. And now...
So Rhea is Poppy?
Yeah. That's what Dominic... Isn't... that's what Rhea said. Rhea said Poppy is very proud of you.
And then Dominic said thank you.
But then later Dominic referred to her backstage as mommy.
No, she's a single parent, clearly playing both roles, which is very modern. Okay. Gender neutral roles, cool.
So dude, Dominic, they just drowned him out with booze. And he's not the loudest talker to begin with. Balor's even Ripley was, talk to the people at the far end of the arena. And he's just trying to get this out. It actually was a cool atmosphere, like the amount of booze that they got. I'm very proud too. And he's just booed. He calls them his real family, the Judgment Day. And then Balor wants to take a family portrait and Riddle cuts them off. But they got a lot of heat during this segment, and they just there is something about like Dominic that it's like he has a strange it does add something to this group, having the four of them, this odd dynamic.
Yeah, certainly.
This odd Dominic, dare I say.
Odd is how I would describe it, because I think Dominic is just a weird fit for like this style of professional wrestling in general. Like I would argue like maybe the most anti-charismatic person that is signed to like a full-time deal that they currently have. Like, who am I thinking? Like he's got like, he's a way better wrestler than this guy, but he's almost got like David Flair vibes, like in that, like, he wouldn't be hired if he was not this person's son. And that is a terrible truth. I hate to say it. Like, but just based off of looks alone, I don't think they would have, like his build alone, I don't think they would have hired him. But nonetheless, it doesn't mean that they can't use him. And they've used him tremendously. And he is performing exactly to, I think, what is asked of him. He came out here, and I think there's something. Well, first of all, to me, it tells me the storyline people are like, really, really hooking into. The idea that this man, this boy who thinks he's a man, would turn on his loving father like that unjustifiably. But then like, he's got sort of like Vicky heat, in that like, you're not necessarily hating him because he's a great promo, but simply because like you don't like something about this. And maybe
I said excuse me, please.
Yeah.
I have words to deliver.
I think it's great. I think it's by far the biggest
if
reaction.
Audiences like copycat this kind of a segment, and they're just trained to try and drown out Dominic, that's fine. This guy doesn't need to be going out there and cutting these long promos. If he's getting booed, mission accomplished. Like it helps for the act.
And this goes for Vicky too. Like he gets a type of heat that other wrestlers can't get, even if they wanted to. So they've achieved that at this point. And yeah, let's see if they can carry it on to Edmonton and to other places. Judgment Day has really, I think, benefited from his inclusion, and he has, and Rey Mysterio has, and Edge has too.
So Riddle is out to interrupt them, and we get Balor and Priest against Mysterio and Riddle with Dominic and Ripley on the floor. So for this match, they got the heat on Rey for a long time. Then he makes the tag to Riddle, and Riddle gets cut off, and he's chokeslammed by Priest onto the edge of the apron. So they get the advantage on Riddle for like the longest period of time. Then he lands a head kick on Priest, and he goes for the bro to sleep, and this like barely landed, and barely might be charitable here. He makes the tag to Rey. Balor's in as well. The 619 gets thwarted, and then it's Riddle with the floating bro off the apron. Rey successfully hits the 619 on Balor. Audience goes nuts, and then Ripley distracts the referee, and Seth Rollins appears, attacks Riddle, and then gets chased off with a chair by Rey, and Dominic walks up to Jefe, and he just puts his chin out, and he gets down on his knees and dares Rey to blast him in the face. Rock
Yeah.
Ken Shamrock style. And Ray just can't do it. And Dominic just smiles as Ray runs into the ring, into a sling blade. He's hit with a South of Heaven and coup de grace. Balor pins Ray in 17 minutes and 5 seconds, and the Judgment Day have a big group hug at the end. Not enough hugs among all these groups that we have in professional wrestling, but
Heels hug.
yeah, this was like 30 minutes of the Judgment Day altogether with the promo and match afterwards with a bunch of commercials thrown in there too. But the audience got really hot by the end with from 619 onward.
Mm-hmm. I continue to, I mean, the wrestling is good, but to me, like what continues to stand out is all the story stuff involving Dominic, and the spot that they crafted for him here, I thought was pretty good. There was like something like about it that felt very much like it was like Eddie Guerrero, like of him, like, daring Ray, kneeling down to get to Ray's level, which is insulting in itself, and then daring Ray to, hit him in the jaw with like this sort of like smirk on his face. So slowly but surely, like the, transformation continues for Dominic, and it's been fun to see.
There's a pull apart backstage between Rollins and Riddle, and now Rollins is fine. I'll accept your rematch. So his breaking point was him getting involved in the match, not the other way around, it looks like. So Riddle calls for a fight pit match at Extreme Rules, and the announcers, this part, maybe this is a little nitpicky, but they come back and they were like, he's going to have a fight pit match with Riddle. He used to fight for a living. It's like, what am I watching? What is he doing now? Like, this is one line where I understand where you're coming from, but it makes absolutely no sense in the context of this pro wrestling match that he used to fight for a living. Why would Rollins pick this match with Riddle?
Right. Is there an understood difference between fighting and wrestling? Where like fighting, the intent, like boxing is to like knock out or submit your opponent, whereas wrestling is to pin your opponent's shoulders to the mat. Like, we're thinking way too hard.
I just thought this was like an odd explanation of why this match is so
he used
dangerous,
to
because
shoot
Riddle's
for
a
living.
real fighter.
Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do? Like they branded.
These are going to be live rounds. We're going to see some live rounds.
Well, listen, they've already branded this thing as Fight Pit, and you're not really going to get around that too much.
Maybe Rollins is going to insist on drug testing beforehand and see if there's any marijuana in his
You have
system.
to enter USADA for how long? 9 months before entering this Fight Pit.
Yeah, there should have been a build-up for Extreme Rules next year.
Yeah, you got to weigh in and everything. Yeah. I think it's cool. And this, by the way, was the other thing I remembered, or I was referencing Triple H bringing back from NXT. The Fight Pit. Yeah. So maybe the Hacker is next. Solomon Crow is coming back next. He's bringing back everything from NXT. But the announcers are speaking as if everybody knows what a Fight Pit is. And I venture to guess like a good portion of the audience, yes, watched everything NXT. But I mean, I would say maybe even a majority have no idea. Never saw the Fight Pit matches from Riddle. So they'll probably explain it next week, I guess.
Or not. And half your audience can tune in thinking that Riddle's going to interview him on Piper's Pit.
Fight Pit. Okay.
Miz TV. The Miz and Tommaso Ciampa are in the ring. Miz says he's the victim of a deranged madman who crossed the line stepping into his home, and he explained that Loomis entered the home, drew a picture of his family, left it on the coffee table, and then left. They made it very clear that Dexter Loomis didn't do any harm to his family. He just did the simple faux pas of breaking and entering.
Yeah. So you can still cheer for him, everybody. I mean, all he did was, commit
a criminal offense on camera that led to no charges.
Probably did traumatize his children.
And traumatized Miz
forever.
Because a few days ago, it was his daughter's 3rd birthday, and she had a Minions-themed party, and he was so worried one of them was Dexter Loomis, he punched a Minion.
Yeah. Has Max worked up to the Minions movies yet?
No, we're not at Minions yet. But I thought this would have been a hilarious bit if they had just recreated this Minions party, and then it turns out like you've got all these Minions, and then there is Midian in the middle who gets punched.
He would have hired. You think the Miz and Maurice would have hired Midian to play a Minion at
Midian,
a 3-year-old's Minions party? Okay. Well, what is the man doing? Dennis
Knight.
Yeah, what is he doing?
Well, the last I saw him, he showed up at table for 3 late, and they just kept it in there. He shows up late, right at the end of the show, with the Undertaker and all of his crew, and Dennis Knight's wearing a mask. And they're explaining we're in Florida. No one wears those. This is in 2020. And they leave this in the final copy of Table for 3.
That pandemic.
That COVID. Anyway. How do we get on these tangents? This is why this show is at an hour and 25 minutes.
Yeah, it's fine.
Dexter Lumis is called out by The Miz. And then we see this giant hunting knife that just slices through the ring. And he cuts it. And then it's just this long wait for The Miz, who's like standing there, and we're just waiting for like the punchline. And then finally Loomis pops up and he tries to pull Ciampa into hell, because that's underneath the ring in wrestling is hell. And Ciampa and Miz escape doom, and Ciampa fights him off with a microphone, and that's how this ends, with them being saved.
Yeah. I don't think you and I are like the best judges of how, like, what barometer this Dexter Lumis Miz stuff is, I don't know, working at, because I think I've hated it from the beginning. I don't know about you, John. Like, I've certainly had enough by this point, where they're in the same like show where they're, I think, trying really hard to, like, you know, continue to tell some, I would say, like, relatively interesting, like, spooky shit with Bray Wyatt possibly here. They're doing like cartoonish spooky shit with Loomis, and it just doesn't, like, I know like Raw and WWE in general often ventures to camp as like sort of like, I don't know, like an embraced part of the variety show. This just does not feel like it has a place in a current like type of WWE Raw that I'm holding to a much higher standard now than I'm used to. Like, this feels like it belongs in your Saturday night or Saturday morning cartoon show. We do this on Main Event. I think it'd be fun to have a show full of like Dexter Lumis, you know, wackiness on Main Event or something.
Part of me gets it that like this, like Sam Shaw, he plays this character great. Like his like the straight face he can hold, the visuals. Like, I can see how like a producer that works with him, like a Paul Levesque, just thinks this guy is just like, the fact that he was a priority to bring back tells you he sees something. To me, like, I haven't enjoyed these segments, and I'm sure they're going to have some wacky match at the end of this whole thing, which I hope is well thought out, because like, I have no desire to see the payoff at the end of this.
Yeah. Like, to me, the worst is seeing Ciampa there playing kind of silent best friend accessory there, who is just really kind of there to, I don't know, be dragged around by the Miz. I mean, Ciampa is somebody that I'm fully confident that, like, you know, Hunter has big plans for, and I don't think he'll mess.
This guy was out in Harley Race's robe a month ago, and this is the
so to see him reduced to sort of like a side character in a comedy storyline is kind of disheartening. But fuck, man, like, he better have some big payoff for this, because I don't know why, like, you would do so well with all of it. Like, Dominic Mysterio has a serious storyline, yet like we're, you know, woefully playing into camp here with Dexter Lumis and The Miz.
Yes, so there you have it. But does have his fans, and we hear from all of them on Tuesdays. So there you have it. Next week, Alpha Academy against Owens and Gargano, the Panda Express, and Matt Riddle against Damian Priest for Edmonton, which is in Canada, which is where Kevin Owens is from.
Thank you.
Kevin Patrick interviews the Judgment Day. It's time to celebrate, and Dominic jokes about, wait, guys, I've got to go check on my father. Just kidding. Psych. And he's heard about the... Fooled ya.
No, you know what the new thing is? I just learned this weekend.
Tell me.
Cap.
Oh.
Okay. Have you heard this?
Yes. Yeah.
Cap. It means lie. You're lying. No cap means that's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cap.
That's one of the very few things I am up to speed on.
Wow, I'm surprised.
Which probably means it's passed us by at this point.
Yeah, I had no clue.
Yes. So he's going to hang out with Damian Priest, the legendary partier. And he says, I have a new mommy now. So this is the dual role that Rhea Ripley holds with Dominic.
Yeah, and she says, "And mommy knows best." So
Mommy knows best.
listen, whatever sort of like I think I don't know.
I thought Hogan knew best, and that proved to be absolutely false.
Yeah, he does not know best. Yeah. Uh, but I think whatever sort of like sexual tension that's going on between the two, like they're playing up for us, right? Like intentionally, wouldn't you say? Or am I just like twisted?
I think if you're looking for it, I guess I don't get that vibe as much off of them. Like I see it as more as just like he's under her control. Like that's sort of like this Dominic. It's like he has been brainwashed by Rhea, and I guess you could go to like a this.
I just don't know many situations where you can get away with like dressing up in like all black pleather and calling each other mommy and poppy and like not be those relationships and have it be anything but sexual. But yeah, sure, wrestling maybe.
We'll see where it goes. They have Valentine's Day. They have a long build towards February maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Awkward Dominic asking out Rhea on a date.
I can't wait. What a relationship.
They walk around the corner and there's AJ just standing there on the phone. And Finn goes up to him and is like, dude, why are you here? You're not even booked. Why'd you come all the way to wherever the hell we are? And Balor says, he says, I never turned my back on you when I joined Judgment Day. I can't even remember at this point what all happened here. So AJ wants no part of Judgment Day. Balor asks, are you looking for a fight? But then he just smiles and hugs AJ, and AJ is left conflicted. So this is our reminder that AJ is still here on Raw.
So they're following up on the thread that I think they tried to introduce after Balor turned. Like, remember in that multi-man match where like they tried to show AJ having hesitation and attacking Finn Balor? You remember that? It was like a month ago. They dropped it after that. Nothing happened after that. And maybe rightfully so, because I think they needed a bridging segment like this to show you the tension within AJ.
Here's what I don't get, and I guess it's like you can just play with like the past, but like where does this long friendship go? Like Balor left New Japan, and that opened the door for AJ to come to New Japan,
yeah,
and pretty much take his spot as like the Bullet Club leader.
I think if you're a WWE writer catering to a WWE fan, you're just supposed to think that everybody who's ever been to Japan is friends. Everybody who was ever in the Bullet Club was in the Bullet Club at the same time. They all
everyone from Canada knows each other.
Pretty much, yeah. Oh, you wrestled in Mexico. Oh, yeah, we knew each other from Mexico. We know each other from Japan. Right. Like, and especially with Finn and AJ, I think they just know that, like they have a general awareness that the audience knows that these two used to be in the Bullet Club. And so they probably just assume, it's all the same time frame,
They did a video on Alexa Bliss, and that takes us to the main event. And dude, there were like 25 minutes left in the show when they were walking out. So it's Alexa Bliss and Bayley, and Belair, Asuka, Sky, and Kai are all ringside, and they bring up the payback match from 2017, and it turned out this was going to be payback for Bayley.
Finally,
5 years planted that seed, and it blossomed on Monday night. So Bayley places Bliss on the desk. This is after attacking her knee, but Bliss kicks her away and does a somersault, further injuring the knee. They come back from break. Bayley goes for the Bayley to belly, and it looks like this awkward counter by Bliss, but then they get right back up, and then Bayley hits the Bayley to belly, so it looked like this was a actual mistake, and they just went back to it because it was going to be a near fall. This kind of wakes up the crowd, because the first half of this crowd is totally checked out. Bayley puts her feet on the ropes and Belair knocks them off, and that prompts Damage Control to send Belair into the post. Asuka then misses the hip attack into the steps, and it's Bliss with the DDT. She climbs up for Twisted Bliss, but is knocked off by Io Sky, leading to the Rose Plant and Bayley pinning her in 15:09. Damage Control continued to attack Asuka, including an assisted quebrada, with Sky wearing her title belt to land on her. Belair comes back, but she is also beaten down and hit with a Rose Plant as the crowd boos Damage Control, and Bayley announces she wants the title at Extreme Rules. And that ended Raw.
The moonsault with the belt on you. Oh, okay. I'm surprised I haven't seen that more often. Who's that supposed to hurt? I mean, obviously the person taking it, but how does that work in belt logic? Because like sometimes guys would Anyway, doesn't. I'm overthinking it. Hey, I thought it was a good
I thought
match,
this was
right?
too long, and I thought the crowd, they really did not respond to this until like near the end. I thought this would have been a significantly better match if Asuka was like this was like a big spot to end the show with. Like this is like 15 minutes plus entrances that I just felt like this was
I think
I
there
just didn't
was.
think it was the greatest match.
So they tried to set the story up here. I mean, number one, because it was, a rematch from the last time in San Jose. And also like they're trying to tell a story of like Alexa getting back to her older self. Also in the match, the lights happen to flicker. And I think if you know WWE production, the lights never flicker without a reason. So couple that with like, the fact that it was like Lily ringside watching and Alexa Bliss being in the ring might lead more to the guesswork that might be at play with this Bray Wyatt thing. So that might be the
Did the
reason.
lights flickering lead to anything? Did it like throw
Not
her
on this
off?
show.
Yeah.
Not on this show.
All right.
Well,
Well, there was
but
that.
they're not just flickering for no reason.
No, I'm sure that was intentional. I totally missed that, so I mean, it played no factor in the match for me. But that was fine. I just for to close the show, I think the third hour is tough enough, and this just felt like a long match. So there you
Yeah,
have it.
yeah. I mean, in another week without that sort of competition, I think you would have probably ended with Rollins versus Lashley, because now they actually do proper main events on Raw. Um, and they probably thought this was the next best thing in terms of star power with Bailey, in San Jose. But it's an uphill battle, having a heel hometown person.
But the hometown person won, just as a heel. So you did have that all these years later.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. That was Raw. A show pretty heavy on wrestling. In terms of like, I would say storyline advancement. Like you got the two matches now for Extreme Rules that they added with Riddle and Rollins and Bailey and Bianca Belair. Beyond that, I wouldn't say like there was too much in terms of angles on this show. It was more so like a lot of like wrestling that just kind of kept certain feuds like in place as they're moving towards the next show.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we might be starting to see the seeds. Oh, first we got the main event for, or at least the title match for Extreme Rules with Bailey versus Bianca, and then beyond that, maybe starting to sow the seeds for WarGames on the women's side of things. I was personally pretty like captivated by everything going on with the whole White Rabbit stuff, online. So that to me was by far the most significant thing to come out of the show, just to kind of see what that level of teasing and storytelling by the WWE might lead to.
All right, let's go to some feedback before we wrap it up, and we'll kick things off on the forum with Benjamin, who writes, with Triple H saying that blood isn't necessary anymore, the announcement of Survivor Series War Games, and another good Raw. WWE seems like the post-Vince McMahon era has a long honeymoon. I hope this is a sign that we're getting Alexa Bliss and her old character and promos back. No more doll. Well, I don't know if one goes... That seems like a contradiction. If they're going back to the old character, I don't think they're ditching that doll. And the fact they've kept the doll throughout this whole time this year, like I think it's a merchandise seller for them, and I don't think they want to drop it.
She never like stopped walking with the doll, right?
There might have been the odd time, but I've always noticed that she's had it. I mean, there may be.
I'm just wondering if she's specifically bringing it back now.
She's had it for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like on the one hand, they were showing a video package of who Alexa Bliss used to be, and they were making promo references to who Alexa Bliss used to be before all the spooky stuff. And then they're also doing the light flickering. So, I mean, I think at the very least, you're promising some sort of interaction between. Again, this is all if Bray Wyatt is coming back, which I think an educated guess would indicate. I think you're going to see some indication between Alexa and Bray, maybe just to kind of tie up that loose end, because it was a big loose end, that we never really saw the proper conclusion to. Okay, we go up next to Shane McDonough, who says, "Hey guys, this was my first time attending a WWE live event since 2017. It was mid, but here are my highlights. It's always a joy watching Kevin Owens wrestle. Dominic is a delight. Bailey actually won in San Jose, and the 9-year-old sitting behind us kept screaming, 'Dom, you're being manipulated,' during the Judgment Day match, and 'Miz, he's in the floor,' during the Miz TV segment. The negatives, the dude next to me screaming, Double D Bailey throughout the main event. Oh God.
That sounds painful to have to listen to.
Much prefer having the children crowd.
Wow.
I bet.
Dom, you're being manipulated.
Yeah.
That's what you think. I wish Dominic would respond to these 9-year-olds.
Question for you guys. Why do you think AEW hasn't fully tapped into the West Coast market yet? Really wish they'd come to the Bay Area for once. I think they do spectacular. Interesting timing.
Well, it sounds like the Bay Area is like in the running. Like that's where reportedly the February
Revolution
could end up being Revolution. So I think that it's only a matter of when they get there, and it looks like it won't be too long. I think that like there's plenty of markets. WrestleNomics has gone over this, like unexplored markets that AEW has yet to tap into, and they've sort of kind of mapped out their kind of go-to cities. It's like it's Chicago, and then it's, we go to a different market here, and then we go back to Chicago, and then we go explore somewhere else, and we go back to Chicago. And I'm certain that the pandemic greatly slowed down expansion to different places, but there is still, like, as we saw when they went to like places like the Forum, like there's still places you can go, and it's like that first time, like the Bay Area that you go to, that's going to have that novelty of being the first time AEW's in your market. I mean, we're going to see that in a month's time in Toronto, like that. They sold out one night. And then there's still Rampage the second night as well. But anyway, that's I'm sure that the Bay Area will probably be within a couple of months that they're there. Next up is Muggin. Too many distraction finishes. I understand that every match tonight went out of its way to protect everyone involved, but it does feel like a case of diminishing returns. Everyone can't be protected. That said, Raw hummed along nicely. The U.S. title opener was very good. Bayley main evented in the Shark Tank with Damage Control standing tall, and the White Rabbit mystery got the ball rolling on Bray Wyatt's impending return. Between Survivor Series ditching the Raw vs. SmackDown theme for WarGames and the return of the Fight Pit, WWE is setting themselves up for a strong autumn.
So like going back to the question, like everybody can't be protected. I certainly agree. I'm also sympathetic to like the requirements that I think, a TV wrestling show has to fulfill, in that it needs to always have like 2 stars of a certain caliber. You can't just have jobber matches for all of these matches. Everything has to build to something on a pay-per-view, or at least ideally, right? And has to build towards the future. So Lashley obviously couldn't have afforded the loss. Riddle could afford the loss, but he needs to lose in a way that furthers his ongoing storyline, and that's why you have a distraction finish. Is it like, could Riddle have taken a clean loss and then somehow like retain that heat for Seth Rollins to extinguish at Extreme Rules? Maybe, very creatively, but I'd also maybe imagine that they just wanted to go for this to be more efficient, maybe, or maybe to not risk that.
I don't have as big of an issue when it's television. If the mindset is we get to the pay-per-view where by and large you're going to get your big blow-off finishes at those shows to make them important. That said, I think overall there is like this paranoia of just what a clean loss will do to someone. And I think it's greatly over-exaggerated how detrimental that can be for somebody when it's done in a compelling way. I don't think it hurts anywhere near what they believe it is. And the other point being...
And AEW is proving that with their style of booking.
And that's a comparison point. I don't think it necessarily, hinders somebody. Like what we see like hurts people are like if they disappear off television for a long time, or they're just not involved in a story, that they just kind of fall by the wayside. That to me is stuff that hurts more so. But the other thing is that like these distractions, like at their core, are designed to like get heat on the person interfering or the person that it costs the match to. And when you do it so repeatedly, you lose that impact, and it just elicits more of sort of an eye roll rather than engaging you in the, like your babyface being cheated or the villain getting his comeuppance. When you just do it all the time, you view it, this is an out to the match and not something that is building up the drama in a feud.
Yeah. Again, I think for WWE style of television, like this, it might be the most efficient way of hitting all the bases, in making your champion look strong, in giving the audience an actual finish in the record books, and furthering the feud and delivering the match. they could do a draw and then have, you know, Seth Rollins and go out and say, hey, fuck you, Riddle. You know, that could build heat too, but like it's just not the same, right?
I mean, on this show, you had a winner and a loser in every match, but you also did have like distractions and run-ins. In I guess the only match they didn't have was Holland and Butch with the Street Profits. That was a clean ending, but everything else, like you did have people getting
because the
involved.
Profits don't have a program.
Yeah, and they viewed that one as one that they could get away doing it.
Yeah,
there you go. Last one here is
I consider it more of a problem with just like the constant strive to like have all-star caliber like TV shows. You know, back when we had jobber matches, this wasn't an issue. But when the expectation now is to have 3 hours of like pay-per-view quality matches, sometimes you might not run into like a solution.
Last word comes from Saeed from Vancouver. Didn't catch much of Raw except the last bits. I'm looking forward to seeing where Finn and Styles leads to. Good to see Bayley win in her hometown. And about the White Rabbit, I found it interesting that during the Hangman game, the first letters the Rabbit picked spelled out demon. All right.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, then, I mean, that's another Bray Wyatt thing, isn't it?
They have me hooked for Friday to see where this leads. Yes, so presumably you get your payoff on Friday.
I'm kind of surprised, like, the other piece of the feedback did mention the White Rabbit stuff. So, like, at this point, I kind of, like, if you're maybe following Twitter, maybe you would have followed it more closely. But, like, how much of the audience didn't see it at all?
Yeah, but you know what? This is one of those things where...
Oh, it's not a criticism. It's not a criticism.
No, I'm just saying, like, that's the thing where you can do things like this and it can work on different levels. If you are someone that follows all of this, like it's a cool thing because you're doing all this guesswork and you're intrigued by the answer. And if you're someone that just tunes in on Friday and you're not following any of this and you get some big return, it works on that base level as well. This doesn't cut off your audience if you're into all this. It's just you can appreciate this and get into it in a deeper way, or not. You can just tune in Friday and you get a cool return or some kind of angle.
I'd argue it's catering to a section of your audience that has been craving for this sort of like stimulation for quite some time. And if anything, it might be bringing people back if they find themselves interested in this sort of like, you know, scavenger hunt mystery type of thing.
Mm-hmm. So there you have it. In the Paul Levesque era, you need to understand QR codes and you've got to be paying attention to arguments in the background.
And you also have to know how to Google cryptic tweets from 2 months ago, and then navigate to the second search result to look up a forum thread from 15 years ago.
Yes, it's just different flavors of ice cream. There's chocolate, there's vanilla, but it's all ice cream.
I would say like it's well conveyed. Like it's conveyed well enough that like if you're in for the ride, I think you'd be really into it. You know, like you'd be captivated by it. There are other examples where like people sometimes like kind of weaving this sort of storytelling in and just being not effectively communicated and just being too confusing. So it's a good balance for me right now.
Okay, we're going to sign off Tuesday night. Look out for Up Next with Braden, and he's going to be going through Up Next with guest Chris Wadler, I believe, is going to be joining him because Davey is off to he's off to New York, so check out that. And
he'll be enjoying those $4 shot. What is it? $3 shots, $4 shots.
Good Lord, yes, he will be seeing White Rabbits by the end of Wednesday.
Cheap Shots Bar and Restaurant at Queens, 3 p.m. on Wednesday for the Up Next Grand Slam pre-show.
Yes, drink responsibly if you're hanging out on Wednesday at Cheap Shots. And then Tuesday, we're also dropping Rewind Away. Starrcade, 1995. We'll go through the whole show. We'll try and make sense of it and go through all the news from that week to end off December of 1995 as we are turning the calendar into 1996, the Olympic year in Atlanta. Plenty happening in 1996.
The world was at war with Japan, evidently. If you're watching this show, the Japanese were taking over. Like
Sonny Ono was going to buy WCW.
Yeah, just like Japanese bought Madison Square Garden and what was the other Rockefeller Center? Is that it?
All that and more coming up on Rewind Away for postwrestlingcafe.com members. All levels will get access to that show on Tuesday. So packed week. Check it all out here at postwrestling.com. And that is it. That concludes Rewind to Raw.